Hi everyone, welcome to the MBA 627 lecture series. My name is Dr. Dereje Tasemma. Today we're going to discuss demystifying the research process. Means how to simplify and break it down the research process into a manageable components. In the next couple of slides, we will be discussing why the research process is a lonely journey, challenges to the process in terms of the lack of access to literature, time management, finding the desirable or relevant topic, picking the right advisor, and managing your time between the family, work, and other life. We'll also discuss components of the research process defined by 5 chapters: introduction and problem statement, the literature review, research method, data collection and analysis, recommendations and implications of the study. And we'll be also discussing on the proposal steps, doing your research proposal, and how to collect the peer-reviewed journal articles and complete dissertation. All right, let's see what the process of dissertation or research looks like. Yes, it is a lonely journey. It is more psychological than science or information technology or MBA, because the process is people get pretty much involved on how to finish the project and then what are the steps doing that. Over 40% of your research paper is chapter 2, means that you will be spending a lot of time finding your literature, going through various peer-reviewed journals and other primary, secondary sources, doing annotated bibliography, and also comparing and contrasting the various views available on your topic. Need to know your 5 components of your paper: introduction, problem statement, literature review, that we pretty much discussed. The journey you will take alone is what I call it your research process, because this is the journey. Your research, your dissertation process is based on the agreement between you and then your committee, and once you sign up your agreement, the next step is you need to drive. If you see the slide here, the triangle slide, on top of this triangle is you. Means that you're the one who's going to decide what to do. You're the one who's going to work with your peer-reviewed journals. You're the one who's going to design your research and collect your data and also analyze your data. Beneath you, there are academic advisors. Means we are giving you feedback. We're giving you some form of information for you to keep going, and also working with you on in every step or every stage of your way. The third layer is your school faculty or administrations. Your faculty chairperson, the mentors, deans, and other School of Business faculty members that will provide you additional information in terms of how you conduct your research. And the last part is your support staff. Means that it's the writing center, the library, and other resources you may need during your research process. All right, so like what I said earlier, yes, it is a lonely journey. and then yes, you're the one who's going to drive, but that doesn't mean that we're going to leave you alone. But for the most part, since you picked your own research topic, and then our role is to give you an idea, or to give you supporting documents, or to give you information on how to proceed. So for the most part, this is what you're supposed to do for your research. All right, let's talk about steps to take during this lonely journey. This slide presents an amazing picture of the steps you need to take during your research process. The first box is getting started, and it's your passion. Remember, if you pick your own research that you are passionate about, that you're really interested to pursue after your class, that you really wanted to produce a body of knowledge in your area, then the possibility or the probability of completing your research successfully is huge. So find something that passionates you, find the research topic that really interests your topic, and to some extent has a connection with your school or with your concentration, is the right step. Then the next box is, okay, now you have your passion, and you collected or you gathered a couple of research topics. That's why you see those bigger and smaller boxes. Is that too many ideas or too big ideas? That means that you have to go through a selection process for your research topic. You may end up having 5 topics, and after going an initial research review or peer review journal analysis, or talking to your professor, then you may come down to a specific topics that you will be interested to work. That's why from too many ideas and too big ideas, you break it down, and you come to a specific research topics. So the last box on the first row of this slide is, now you picked your research topic and you will begin to focus. Means that now you have your research topic, and you need to start collecting information about how you do your step. Okay, so once you begin to focus, then you need to find your problem. Remember, every research starts with a problem or a problem statement. You want to find the gap between the current business process to the future business process. You want to identify factors affecting a specific phenomenon. You want to investigate if there is a correlation between variables that you're gonna investigate, or you wanted to understand how one company or one organizations become successful in terms of doing a marketing strategy, or doing a business process strategy, or doing innovation. So you need to find a problem that an organizations found as an impediment for their area, and how they tackle it. So that is that's one area where you need to find your problem, which is problem statement, finding your problem. Now, let's assume you have your problem, and the next box tells you that, would anyone care if it is solved? Okay, who is the primary person driving this research behind? Are you or somebody else? If you're not sold off, if you're not convinced about your research area, and no one would be interested. So you need to find out an area where that's convincing to the people who listen, and say, okay, who cares about your area? I mean, of course, people who are interested in finding the research results are they care. Of course, you care, your professor cares, and then also the body of knowledge, the other researchers interested to know the finding of your research. So, just go over and imagine who cares for your project. The next box you see here is you need to ask yourself whether that research topic has been identified or investigated before. That's why you see, has someone else solved it? If the answer is yes, then there is no way that you're going to waste your time try to do the same thing or try to regurgitate what other researchers did. So it is important. Oftentimes, students just go with their interest, with their research, without investigating if that research has been done somewhere else. And at the 11th hour, they find out that this research is already done, the result is already out there, then they have to go back and then change. So that is the reason why we recommend our students to do a little bit of literature review in their area to find out if in fact the research has been performed or not. Then now you have your problem, and then that people are interested in your research area, and you also found out that this is a fairly new area that no one has attempted to work. Then the next step in your project process, or in your research process, is you need to define your research questions. Means that the last box on the second row in this slide shows what are your research questions. Usually research starts or your project starts with a handful of research questions, usually 3, 4, or sometimes 5, and those research questions drive the speed and the detailed process you're gonna involve. And that's why it's important that you will identify your research questions, because those questions will serve as a springboard for you to dive in. If you are dealing with the business or some of the major event that happened in the world, the economic crisis of 2008, the housing bubble, espionage, knowledge management, all of these business concepts, then you need to start designing your research questions and ask yourself, okay, what's the phenomena? How is your variables being measured? What are the dependent and independent variables available in your research? How do you plan to conduct your research? And these are kind of a little bit of kind of a highlight of the type of research questions you're going to ask. But as we move into individual session, then you will pretty much refine your research, and you will identify key areas that will help you to investigate. Good. We have a problem now, and we also have confirmed that the problem is pretty much new. We also identified the research the research questions. Then the next step is how to define the hypothesis. All right. How do we define hypothesis? Your hypotheses are there to test your research questions. Your hypothesis will help you to find out the statement you made or the expectation you made at the beginning of your research could be testable or not, whether you can accept or reject. But in social science, we only accept and reject, not proof or disproof like in natural science. So your hypothesis formulation is another key area that you will work with your research advisor, and you will work with your committee, and because it's important that your hypothesis could serve you as your GPS or your framework or your scope of your research. So hypothesis formulation is another area that we're going to discuss in great detail. And the first box in the last row is says, is there a theoretical base for your research? Remember, theory are the foundation for all researches. The difference between a research paper made with a supporting of theories versus a research paper made without theory is just like, building your house on sand and building your house on a rock foundation. Because the theories are, they serve as your foundation, because those theories have been tested and retested and pretty much universally accepted by your domain, and it's always important to have those theories when you start your research. Eventually, if you are planning to publish your paper, then your paper goes through the peer review process, and those reviewers who have been pretty much publishing in the area of in your domain area, the first thing they would like to see is what type of theory you use, because they firmly believe on the impact and the significant implication of using a theory for your research. So that's why you see in a question mark, is there a theoretical base? Oftentimes an MBA students go through a paper writing process, the term paper, and what they do is just pick a company or pick an organization and write about it, and no one cares whether you have a theory or not. But this research, the research paper you are doing, the research project you are doing, is something which that you're going to be proud of it when it's done. That's something which you wanted to share to the fellow professionals after you graduate. That's something which you wanted to publish. So you don't want to have a research paper that is not supported or founded by your theory. So theoretical base is key. And the next box in this slide is it talks about research method. Okay, you have identified your research problem, you identified your research questions, you define or stated your hypothesis, you formulate or pretty much picked your research theory, and the last part is you wanted to know what type of research method you're going to use when you plan your research. And that's why you see, is there a valid research method available for you, or do you know any research methods that you're comfortable with, that your research can be done easily. Then the last box in this slide is, okay, so we've done everything. We went through the whole boxes. We kind of narrow down your research topic. You did the whole 9 yards. Now the question is, now you only have 8 weeks, and one question you need to ask yourself is this doable? Can you do it with this period of time? I know, for a PhD student, you may need years, 2, 3, 4 years to finish your paper. For other MBA programs, they may give you a full semester, which is 16 weeks. But in this case, you only have 8 weeks, and you need to kind of ask yourself if you can do this right there within that time frame, or is that something ambitious that you wanted to review. So the first characteristics of a researcher is be honest. So you're going to be honest with yourself, and you ask yourself a question that, is this something which I can do it? If it is not, go back and talk to your professor and adjust your scope. So it's about getting the scope. All right. This slide walks us through the steps taken during this lonely journey. Means that it's pretty much summarizes the steps we've discussed in the previous slide. Title. Of course, your research need to have a title. Without a title, it's pretty much not identified, and your title need to be appealing. Remember, you will be one of the million people writing and doing their research every semester, and if you wanted to publish it, or if you wanted to get attention to your professors and then other people, then your research should pretty much indicates what type of research you are doing. And oftentimes when I advise my students, I will tell them that, okay, put something like analysis or investigation or finding or study. Means that analysis of the relationship between diabetes and obesity, or finding the relationship between global warming and the world economy, finding the relationship between corporate espionage and economic advantage, or finding the relationship between emotional intelligence and leadership. So your title should tell the readers how what are the variables you are investigating. Remember, in your research, in your title, you should be able to identify at least the dependent and the independent variables that you're going to work with, so that people know from get-go how you're doing your research. So that's why your title identifies the issue. Of course, the next one is your research problem. So the problem of your research and why you're interested to do. Your hypothesis or propositions, how you define your hypothesis, and your research model. How we're going to discuss probably in lecture 3 or 4 how you do research model. And you by now you need to have kind of an idea of the variables you're going to investigate, like what I said, the dependent and the independent variables. And those variables and those research models are validated by research methodology. We have one full lecture of the different type of research methodology social study uses, and I'm not going to go into that now. And finally, when you see the last row is, of course, grounded. Your research is grounded by literature. See, if your research is not included your literature, then you don't know if similar research has been done in the past. You don't know if your research is valid. That's why I said at the beginning of our lecture is that 40% of your research paper is pretty much your literature review, which is chapter 2. So your title, research problem, hypothesis, the model, variables, everything is supported by or grounded by your literature review, which is chapter 2. All right, let's talk a little bit about challenges to your research process. Of course, you may come up with a laundry list of challenges why you cannot do your research, but the intention of these 2 slides is not to scare you, but to give you kind of a heads up that the challenge you're going to get into when you are doing your research. The first challenge that is pretty much agreed by many researchers as an impediment or sometimes as a showstopper is lack of access to literature. The rule of thumb here is that before writing chapter 1, students should read at least 4 to 6 completed research papers and about 25-26 peer review articles in their domain to get ideas on the type of research to conduct, available literature, research methods, and instrument for data collection analysis. This is a huge and a very important statement. You have to read a lot, and you have to read often, and you have to get access to those literature. And the good thing about the connectivity of, or the infrastructure, or the availability of technology, made it easy for any universities, whether it's big or small, whether it's with 50,000 students or 2,000 students, they all have access to the main major literature databases available in the world. And if you have check with your library, and I'm sure and then try to get access to those databases. Some of those databases are like ProQuest. That's one of the I think the one of the the largest literature database for completed works, the PhD and then the master's program. EBSCO is another one, which is a database pretty much geared to providing peer-reviewed journals from different areas, from Europe, from Asia, and then from the United States. The IEEE is another database if you are focusing on engineering and information technology. Science Direct is another good database that you may want to explore, because the beauty of Science Direct is that if you pick one specific research topic, then the database is like Amazon. It gives you additional research topic, additional research articles related to your selected. So they, if you pick project management and leadership, you may get probably like 100,000 of them, but they kind of pick and recommend for you like the top 10 research articles or materials that have been viewed or referenced or downloaded by similar researchers. So that will pretty much cut your time of digging into those hundreds and thousands of articles, and then you just direct go there. I like Emerald. This is one database focused on the Europeans and then Asians publications, and Emerald has their book collections and their peer-reviewed journal collections is really superb. So lack of access to literature is one challenge, but if you know the challenge in advance, then you may be able to identify those as a risk and then start working. The second challenge is understanding the research framework. Proficiency in math, stats, programming, networking, or enterprise resource planning, or everything is helpful, but not the main requirement. What you need to know is how you cultivate the culture of out of the box thinking. Research is seeing the big picture. Research is about identifying or reading between lines. Research is about connecting the dots. So unless you change your view, you may have an issue down the road. Of course, establishing good networking with professionals in your field is another interesting area that you need to explore, because if you have a good networking, then you may contact, you may ask them for an advice, or you may probably send your paper for their review, and then you may also start working, based on their feedback and then based on their comment. The other challenge is finding desirable or relevant research idea or topics. I think that we covered that before. I've seen students changing their topic 3-4 times before they settle into one. It's understandable, because at the end of the research, you have no idea whether you're going to get those research, whether you're going to get the variables, the data collection strategy, so you pick one, and then when you start working, you realize that this is something which you really cannot do with that time, so you have to go back and then adjust. Of course, lack of information on current research topic is another one, because business is moving fast, and you have to identify and you have to find out that the topic that are not covered, or if you cover some topic that is tend to change frequently, and then you have to keep yourself up to date. Of course, finding the right professor, that's another challenge. But the good thing is that there is a paradigm shift in higher education, where more universities are picking to hire scholar practitioners than the pure academic professors who literally live in their head without seeing the real world. And those professors, they're good. You can produce a very good research paper. However, if you ask the content and if you ask the actual implication, you may probably run into problem. But if you are working with scholar practitioners, means that the people who work in their field in the daytime and teach the universities, then they will be a good source for you to find research, because they will advise you that why don't you work on the area, because these are the issue I see in everyday life in our professional area. So it's important to find out those or identify or check if your professors are really scholar practitioners, because they tend to address the need to connect theory with the real life issue problem. Of course, another challenge is time management. Means that too little time for everything. You have family, community, work, and other commitment, and it's up to you to plan and then define your time. Create time for your writing. Write when your mind is fresh. Find a regular writing place, because that is it will give you in the habit of writing. If you are a morning person, then you can write early in the morning, or if you are a night owl, then you may probably stay longer and do your writing when everything is quiet. Set goals and achieve them. Every time you want to do, set your goal and try to achieve them, and finish each writing session with a high point. Treat yourself when you're done writing one section, and then also make sure that you give yourself kudos at the end of each section. Of course, get friends to read and then comment on your work. That is also another good topic or good research strategy.